Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Michael and Patty Show, this being episode 121. My name is Michael.
And I'm Patty.
And today we're recording from the Charlottetown waterfront, looking out at nothing but whiteness. You can't even see across the Hillsborough River. But it's nice and warm. It's -5, going up to a balmy -3. Take out the bikinis and the shorts. It's time to go to the beach.
It doesn't really feel like what you would expect when you hear island living, that you actually live on a snow island is what it feels like this time of year.
We've got the stats for January. They've been released. We'll get to that real quick. Try not to make it too boring. Home sales are down 20.7%, totaling 88 units, down from 111 from last year. Market is balanced. It's neither in favor of the buyers or the sellers, so you people that are $400,000 overpriced and think you're going to take advantage of COVID in 2026, chances are it's not going to happen, but what I would suggest you do is get your agent to leave a price reduced sign with you when you list, because you're probably going to be using it and you can save them a trip.
Or making your own homemade price reduction sign.
Yes, if you are hiring an agent and the agent decides to use a magic marker in the back of a cardboard box from Amazon as a new price symbol or sign, you probably want to rethink that signage decision. Get something that looks a little more professional. And we're just speaking of stuff we've seen driving around in the form of wannabe signage. New listings down 12.5%, 232 new listings in January, Patty.
Of 2026.
And there's 265 in 2025. Benchmark price, which is supposed to be the typical Prince Edward Island home, was up 1.7%, 371.7, up from 365.5 in January 2025. So that's it. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. And we will move on to recreational and commercial properties and agents being blinded by big bucks, huge commissions. And why I bring this up is for the amount of times that an agent shows a recreational property and it actually closes, I would say it would probably be the highest failure rate in the history of Prince Edward Island real estate. What I mean by that is banks don't want to touch recreational properties because they have a high failure rate. They're typically owner-operated, so now you're putting all the onus upon the owner's management capabilities and their health, and if they can continue to cut the lawn and maintain the units or whatever they're doing. And most of them don't make that much money. They make a single owner's wage because you're trying to produce a year's worth of income in just a couple months' worth of season, the summer season, that is.
So when you're speaking of recreational properties, Michael, are you talking Airbnb?
No,
cottages?
I'm talking cottage, typically cottage rental operations. I've never seen a marina for sale here, but anything that's basically geared towards the recreational user. Someone that's coming here in the spring, leaving in the fall, they're renting a cottage for a week in the summer to go to their beach. I'll give you an example. It might be 25 cottages with an office on 5 acres, and they want $1.6 million. A lot of times, the agent showing the property and the listing agent, all they can see is that commission. What they don't see is the money to get that operation is going to be very difficult, and 99.9% of the people that look at these operations don't have the financial capability to cut a check for $1 million or multiple millions, so they're looking for financing, or what it does is it turns into a giant story that they've got this group of investors that are just going to willy-nilly cut a check to invest in this property that's going to produce absolutely nothing. Why they would do that, I don't know. But the point being, if you do list a recreational property, or if you're showing a recreational property, make sure that the buyers actually do have the money, and that is very well documented.
Absolutely. And what they do have, Michael, because you spoke of what they don't have. They have big dreams, but they don't have anything to back it. They have wonderful vision, perhaps, but not the financial capability to actually make it come to fruition. So they will spend a lot of agents' times if you're a buyer and you want to see this, property, you should, or your agent should have the knowledge or the skill set to ask the right questions to make sure that they're setting you up for success too, because there's nothing more frustrating. You have this big, dream and you're like this little Pop-Tart. I just want to quick and see it so that I can visualize and it will motivate and incentivize myself to even work harder to try to get those investors to buy into this project or this dream that I have. And it just becomes frustrating for the buyer, frustrating for the buyer's agent. You've got a seller who now is asking their agent, what's the story? What's the deal? They went through the cottages or whatever the commercial establishment property setup is. And it's just wasting a lot of people's time. And all it starts with is, like you'd said, a simple question. Do you have the financial capability? I appreciate your dreams, but to be able to actually pursue this.
And can you prove you have the financial capability?
Correct.
What I like about dealing with some Americans as investors, and I've dealt with professional investors from the States, is they'll show you, here's the $2.1 million I have in this brokerage account. I'm ready to spend it on that property. But we don't do that here. I don't know if it's because Canadians are passive or more passive than Americans, but I have heard agents say, and we've covered this in prior podcasts, that the financial well-being of my client is none of my business. It is, in fact, everything. And it is your business to know, because you're wasting a lot of people's time if you're running around with a buyer that doesn't have any money and thinks that they're going to buy a multi-million-dollar property that doesn't cash flow on dreams.
Well, and for the agents that would say it's none of my business to ask or request a bank statement, they must have more time and money on their hands than the majority of us.
All they can see, and this is what the whole topic was from the beginning, all they can see is that big commission. I'm going to make 60 grand off this deal. But what they get at the end of the day, and I've done it when I started real estate, is you run around with people every weekend for 2 years, and then they end up buying nothing.
Yes,
and it's not really a bank statement, because anyone that does have $2 million is probably not putting it in the bank at 0% interest or something that's less than inflation and losing money every year. It's probably a brokerage statement, some form of investment statement. But what it isn't is it isn't a story. I've had people say, oh, I have property in England to sell, and I have a Rolls Royce in Cape Breton. I'm selling that, and I've got a prize horse, and we're going to liquidate the horse, not literally, at a horse auction.
I hope not. Okay.
Moving along. This question came up this week when I had a individual that's looking to move to Prince Edward Island, and his goal is to build a house and move in June. And I said, what are your thoughts on building in the winter? Because you're going to have to start now in January, where you can't even see the ground. The frost is in the ground. It's covered nice in snow. And I would question the level of quality for any house, because I don't know about you, Patty, but when I'm working outside and it's 50-kilometer-an-hour winds and I'm freezing to death, minus 30 wind chill, the level of quality of my work would probably be greatly diminished relative to me doing this on a nice hot summer day when it's 20 degrees out.
Yeah, I could see, not to say that they do this, but I could just see myself personally maybe not putting as many nails in or screws in just so that this is affixed, or just because it is cold. I would be concerned, but I really thought this was a very good topic when you brought it up, because it's not something that is top of mind or that people do a deep dive into, and what actually is the truth and the facts behind it.
The truth and the facts behind it is this particular person from out of province talked to a number of builders, and a number of them said, oh yeah, building in the winter, it's no problem, we do it all the time. So I said to him, I would have to respectfully disagree with that, So I ran it through my assistant, which was ChatGPT, which I get all my wisdom from because we know it's 100% correct all the time. And the short answer is no, unless you enjoy lighting money on fire to stay warm. Building in true Arctic temperatures, let's call that consistently below -20 and especially -30. Well, it's probably not going to be that cold in PEI for the most part. But cold temperatures do create a pile of real-world problems. Just to summarize them, concrete's a nightmare to deal with. Now, I do know they have winter concrete, and it's thinner, and it dries slower, and blah, blah, blah. Ground conditions are unpredictable. This does apply to PEI because our soil is very porous, and that's why people grow potatoes here. But it's also a massive hindrance, in most people's opinion, when you're building, because the frost is going to come out of the ground, which may or may not shift your foundation, and then you're going to have major problems. This is the one I mentioned. Labor productivity drops. Framers in -30°C don't move like framers at +10. Tools fail, materials get brittle, crew morale tanks, mistakes are made. Materials behave differently. This was kind of interesting. Lumber shrinks, adhesives don't work, spray foam needs temperature control, roofing becomes dangerous and less effective. Roofing will also not typically bind very well because under the roof tiles, if you're using tiles, there's that tar sort of sticky stuff that's supposed to bond with the heat. And then they get into moisture condensation and the list goes on and on. So the bottom line is, and what I told this gentleman, is I said, realistically, if you're thinking about moving into June and building in January through may not be the best idea. So his option is he's going to rent and he's going to start the build in June and then they're going to move in Christmas.
That's actually sounds like a really good plan.
It was my plan.
Good.
I made it up all by myself without ChatGPT.
So my question is, too, because I know I have many clients that ask, how did he find a builder? Because we still have an issue with builders on PEI
Good
being
luck with
available. Yeah. So good for him that he's all set.
A topic for another show.
Okay.
We've covered that in past podcasts. I would probably start with the Builders Association of PEI.
Construction.
Or Construction Association of PEI. But that is just a whole topic in itself.
No.
And it does bring up an interesting topic in that he actually did talk to builders. And when I said to him, well, you talked to these builders, that great. Did you get any references from them and houses you can go through that builder has built? You know what the builder said?
No.
You don't know what the builder said?
No,
or the builder said no?
No, I do not know what the builder said.
The builder said no.
So I was right with my answer.
In other words, the builder did not want to give out the references knowing full well that his past clients may have had some issues with their house built in January.
Well, we are assuming that because
we're not assuming at all because this guy actually found somebody that was one of the builders and he had nothing but problems with leaky basements, cracked foundation, roofing issues, and the list went on and on and on. Whether or not that's a product of building in January, I don't know. But the fact that you're dealing with a builder that doesn't want to give out any references and show you products that he has constructed, he or she, to me, that would raise a red flag. Moving along, unless you have anything in closing?
Yeah, I was just going to say, out of respect, perhaps, of the privacy of his past clients, but surely...
Get their permission.
Surely there would be one or two that would be okay to provide an endorsement for them. So
if I had a house built by Acme Construction and I was really proud of that house, I would go out of my way to say, anytime you want to use my house as a show house, please feel free to do so. Normally, you're not going to get that.
No, I agree.
Good. Well, then let's move on.
Let's move on.
I'll let you cover this. This is a situation where we've got a property that's going to close in a week or two. It's a quick close, and this purchaser has contacted 4 or 5 legal offices, and he's having a hard time finding a lawyer to get back to him quickly, probably because it's the end of the month, and the lawyers are more concerned about getting current deals closed and talking for an hour to a new client potentially. My advice is to have your lawyer online before or as soon as you list So you're not all willy-nilly or buying, trying to find a lawyer at last moment's notice, especially if it's a tight close.
Yeah, and just by having a conversation with a who you select and choose as a lawyer, there's a few questions you would have. I am selling my property. I am hoping for, a summer closing, or I'm hoping my agent has advised me my property won't take long to sell. I just wanted to know if you've got any trips planned where,
Where you're gonna
maybe
be going, if you need
no,
someone to come with you.
so that I can maybe schedule my closing to ensure that my team is all going to be available. The other reason you want to have a question or a conversation as a seller with your lawyer is if you have plans or intentions on also going away and you may wait, you list your property, you've got an offer that comes in. Part of the process of negotiating this contract deal and the terms within it might be at that time a great time to have a conversation with your lawyer because now you have a concrete, here's the dates. Also, I'm not going to be here. So now your lawyer's aware that we have to have things a little bit more organized so that signing can happen prior to your departure. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why you would want to have a conversation with your lawyer, if anything, on the onset of receiving an agreement of purchase and sale, and the same for a buyer. Just by introducing yourself while you're selecting, and let's say, okay, we've honed in on lawyer A, this is who I am going to be working with or would choose to work with going forward. You want to check your lawyer's availability. You want to let them know if there's any concerns that you have with purchasing on Prince Edward Island. You want to have a conversation. Depending on your structure, are you allowed to purchase in certain areas of PEI? The Island Regulatory Appeals Commission, are you buying properties that are going to require IRAC approval or the Executive Council approval? So it is great to have these conversations with your lawyer so that you are well informed and it creates a more seamless, hopefully, experience.
Realtor.ca, which is the Canadian equivalent of Realtor.com in the USA, has recently introduced live searches, live in the sense that you can set up a search, you can tell it where you're looking, set up your price range, type of property, age, and it will automatically email you any new listings or price adjustments that happen to those active listings. I don't know when they introduced this. I know it wasn't there before, but I've been looking at properties in the States and Canada, and I did notice that they now have this, which is awesome news.
Yeah, I've had my Realtor.ca saved search set up for. It was approximately a year ago that I did this in a few other areas just to keep an eye on the market. You do not have to be subscribed through a realtor. You just have to use your emails, set up your own little profile account. You're not going to be solicited. It's not like Realtor.ca. Great, we've got this person. We're going to send them out. So please know you can set up a saved search within Realtor.ca. You'll be able to be informed as to price changes and that. And when the time comes and you're comfortable, then you can seek out a realtor to represent you.
And the searches that we set up on our end using our software, which is Paragon, which will set up a collaboration site, is a far more advanced system than Realtor.ca. So if you can have your realtor set that up, you'll even be that much further ahead. But do keep in mind that those searches, for some idiotic reason, only last a year. And then they nag us to death to renew them, which a lot of times we don't have time for, so we just click on to the next screen. So if you find your search just stops searching after a year, just get your agent to renew it.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. The same saved searches that you do anonymously through Realtor.ca, just again with your own email account, just will give you a property is available, and then, if there's any price changes, and then one day it just disappears because it is sold. On a custom collaboration site that a realtor would be able to set up, again, password protected because it's your profile based on your criteria, that one will also send you, price reductions or price changes. Not to assume the price always goes down. Sometimes they do go up. So price changes, as well as if the property is under contract, you would be able to see that. And if a property is sold, you'll be able to see that as well. The beauty of it is once a property is sold and if it's in your collab search, you will be able to at least comb through the photos. You'll know what the price is that it's sold at once it closes, of course, and then be able to compare that with properties going forward that you might be interested in and say, well, I know this one sold for X amount of dollars. I just want to see how it compares. So it's a fantastic site. I would recommend going through a realtor, but if it's too early for you, realtor.ca is a great alternative to get started.
And the other thing you can do with our search site is you can interact with your agent asking questions on properties that are sent.
Yeah, you can save them, you can comment on them, communication, it's another little back platform.
Recently, I did a commercial deal, and 2 days before the closing, the people holding the mortgage asked if they had done an environmental study. This was an experienced commercial banker. I think they sort of messed up here. And the way to prevent this sort of thing from happening is to get and they probably already had a list of terms and conditions to obtain the mortgage from the credit union, and an environmental study may or may not have been on it. Basically, what my client said is you're going to close this deal because it wasn't on the requirement list, and if you're not going to close it, we're just going to buy it through somebody else because they had the cash to do so, or just close on it cash and then put a mortgage on it later. But it was pretty silly of the mortgage lender asking for an environmental study, which could take weeks, or I don't know how backed up they are because I don't do a lot of environmental studies. Could take weeks, couple months to get done, could be thousands of dollars. And for them to ask for it 2 days before closing, that wasn't really a professional move, especially for someone with so much experience, because I know this banker and he's been around for decades.
I agree. Was there something perhaps in the area that would have red flagged it for the bank? It's
Patty,
an odd
it was
request.
Nothing to worry about. It was next to a nuclear waste dump and a munitions manufacturing plant across the street.
I don't think we have any of those on the island.
And a toxic chemical factory, but other than that, it was good.
If you are looking...
It doesn't matter. They should have asked for that preemptively. They should have said, we're going to give you a mortgage, but we want you to do a phase 1 environmental.
That's what my point or question is going to be, is perhaps not something I would ask a lender right out of the gate.
Well, I was thinking that too. You don't want to say, geez, do you want an environmental study, a plot plan, a survey, soils type? Do you want those done too? And they're going, yeah, get all that done too.
Yeah, because now that is...
You've introduced it.
Correct, and then it'll be at your expense and cost. But having said that, if there was... I had a fantastic lawyer who represented me on the purchase of my building, and he actually drove by the site. He made sure that he took concern and interest on my behalf. Is there anything that would red flag or that I should be advising my client to perhaps get an environmental assessment? And he did it within the first week or so of the property being under contract. So just know there are some fantastic lawyers out there that would have your back, which again, I was so impressed that my lawyer had done this. But if you do have concerns based on adjacent properties of any kind of spills or anything like that, or any concerns, do that preemptively or ask the listing agent or the seller, is this something that you have done? You've got these, concerns maybe around the properties that are adjacent to the subject property you're looking to purchase. The bank dropped the ball asking 2 days before closing, and I completely agree with you, Michael.
And that same lawyer that you used, I had a property that the property owner owed us some money for property management fees or grass cutting or whatever it was. And that same lawyer drove to Summerside from Charlottetown and hand-delivered the lien to the lawyer that was representing the seller just 2 or 3 days before the closing and got our money. Awesome lawyer, and if you do need to know that lawyer's name and phone number, don't contact us because he's now retired.
Yeah, he's retired and he doesn't want...
Living in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
On to the creepy section of the podcast, AI, and do you find it creepy or extra creepy? And what I'm referring to is these AI videos. You've created a fake AI Patty, and I created a fake AI Mike. I used, I think it was HeyGen. It's pretty creepy, and you're starting to see more and more of these. What are your feelings on this? By the way, AI Patty doesn't even look like you.
So I don't call it, it's my AI twin. And my AI twin, my reasoning for jumping on this wagon to, experiment, figure it out, and make sure that I am as ahead of the crowd as I possibly can be is the whole reason behind it. So I know what to expect, maybe some of it. And it's still, as early on as it is, it's also accelerating at such a quick speed and learning. I do find my AI twin not to sound, she has a more of a
Perfect complexion.
lower tone, I will say, to her voice portrayal of mine after me sending and submitting in a lot of dialogue so that it could pick and hopefully replicate my voice. My concern with this, and yes, my AI twin, she's more serious than I am, I also find. She doesn't smile very much. And I was smiley when I was doing, again, my recording video and that for her. So not sure what AI, how the computer systems perceive our human species, but mine's very serious, has a lower toned voice. My son told me to turn it off. He said, "Don't do those anymore, Mom." And I said, "No, it's the way of the future." And he goes, the way, and he calls me a boomer, but I am not, that you guys are allowing AI to take over. He goes, "It's going to be us having to live in that world and reality," which he had a really good point.
I just think it's interesting, and I don't know if the audience knows, you can basically take a video of yourself. So what I did is I had some video of me in a studio at 4K, uploaded that video, it took the video, and then basically you write a script and AI Mike will say whatever you tell AI Mike to say. But what I found is it's just not natural. They're just not at that point yet. I haven't used it for anything. You're obviously far further ahead in the future than I am, but it just seems so monotone. And when it said certain things, like Prince Edward Island, it would say Prince Edward Island. It's like, that's really weird. It was weird, creepy. Be warned when you're watching these AI videos, and I've seen some of Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, of course, of Trump. It's kind of weird. And basically, they can get them to say anything they want them to say. So just make sure when you're watching these videos that the information you're getting is actually accurate, not a misrepresentation.
And that is my message, is if you are looking, regardless of what industry, whether you're in the real estate industry or others, make sure that the message AI has put together to send is an accurate message. Because even you had mentioned using ChatGPT, which I did introduce to you a couple years ago. ChatGPT will make statements about when you're getting it to or having it assist you, because it should never just write it 100%, but assist you in putting together a property overview. I have found it has made incorrect or false statements. And so you can't trust the content 100%.
But that's just another subject. We had this conversation yesterday on a listing appointment where the sellers of this home were looking at a property to buy or a multitude of properties, and they found that a lot of them were AI enhanced in the pictures that really was not a representation, a fair representation of the property, which it needs to be under our realtor code and other potential local bylaws and laws. And the description was inaccurate because it was referring to things that didn't exist. Like it was, I think she said, it said the house was on a river or water, and there's no river or water anywhere near this house.
Yeah, prime example of a realtor not auditing and, reading through what is being produced. Now, the concern that this particular client had yesterday was, and it was a very valid one, and one from the consumers, because we can become so immersed in our world, Michael. But her concern, much same as those who use Snapchat and that, you can put on a filter. She was concerned that the AI enhanced images, whether it was for staging, furniture, are they also eliminating perhaps blemishes with this filter?
Like fake AI Patty.
So that it presented better or nicer, and she had conveyed that if she receives or has any inclination that these are AI generated photos, that she would probably eliminate it from the list of properties that she would want to look at because she didn't want to be disappointed and have such high expectations. So, note to real estate professionals who think they're doing their seller a great service, and I'm going to, AI enhance it. We're going to virtually stage it. The virtual staging does have a bit of a filter and it can remove blemishes, which is a misrepresentation of the property. And you may be missing out on some buyers that automatically, this is AI enhanced. I am not interested in looking at that property. I found interesting. Go ahead. Sorry.
We're going to move on.
Okay.
And I'm going to create fake AI Patty when I get home, and it's going to say whatever I want.
Okay.
It's going to tell everybody to call me, not you.
All right.
Moving along to dishonest home sellers and telling your listing agent a bunch of BS and expecting them to listen to it, we'll go to another story about a home seller that told their agent that they're going to rent the house out for a year. Their neighbor's building a home, needs somewhere to live. Evidently, it's going to take them a year to build this house, not your typical 4 to 6 months. And they're going to take it off the market and then they're going to put it back on. You can trust me, the home seller. Only to find out, us as realtors and the public would have access to this information as well, the tax registry showed a week later that the mortgage had been completely paid off 100%. This home seller was strapped for cash, yet somehow came up with hundreds of thousands of dollars the next day after they allegedly rented it out. I would be a little bit careful when you're trying to misrepresent your situation to skip around the commission, because we know, in fact, probably what happened. The neighbor came to you, said, we'll buy this house. We want to buy it as a discount without the agent involved. You're going to save the commission. So we're going to offer you a lowball offer, and you just tell them you're renting it out, and they'll forget about it a year later. We don't forget. These houses are tracked, and if the agent wants to, they will go after that vendor. There's also a holdover clause in the contract, which allows us to go after you legally. So, as always, the motto of this show is honesty is the best policy, and transparency should always be the first thing you do. And in this case, this just wasn't a nice thing.
Yeah, the holdover clause is right on the listing contract agreement. And it will be based on your individual agent's discretion. Do they put in 90 days, 100 days?
But this was taking the house off the market, so it had nothing to do with the holdover clause.
Well, the holdover clause, though, does come into play if they sell the property privately that was presented to them through a real estate representation, which again, the sign, they would know that it's for sale because of the real estate sign. So one could argue, well, you found out your neighbor is looking to sell because there was a real estate sign put on the property. So therefore, my real estate marketing worked, but to try to circumvent the agent and say, let's do this, so therefore we don't have to pay the real estate fees. And I know it gets done. It has been done to me a couple times on the island. One scenario did not end well at all, and it was a terrible process. In fact, my seller clients that had done this to me did end up, I had a private conversation with the wife a couple years later. She said it would have been cheaper for us to have paid your real estate marketing fees, which is commissions, your real estate fees, then it would have been the route that we chose, thinking or assuming we were saving the costs. So be honest, real estate professionals, if this particular seller was perhaps honest and said we had the opportunity, at least then they could have an honest conversation with the real estate professional instead of the real estate professional now keeping an eye on it because they suspect some dishonesty is going on. This could get quite costly for that seller.
And in this particular case, it had nothing to do with the holdover clause. The listing agreement was still in place.
Mm-hmm.
The agent withdrew the contract but didn't cancel it, which basically takes it off MLS, but it's still effective. So they have a very good case to go after that commission that obviously the vendor circumvented the agent to sell to their next door neighbor.
Yeah, but just to correct that statement, it's not that the agent didn't cancel the listing. The seller refused to sign the cancellation just because they were too busy and they couldn't be bothered. So, out of fairness and the way our rules are set up is if a property cannot be shown for any reason, there could be, you've got family, gas, a property, if it's on the MLS, should be available for viewings. This property was no longer available for viewings because they had now conveyed an interest in allowing their next door neighbor to rent the property for a year.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. So the agent really had no choice but as to withdraw it until the correct documentation and the paperwork was signed to terminate or cancel the contract. Moving on is steel roofs. And I was going to touch on this when we were talking about construction and that in winter, because it seems to have been a really good segue into this. But many that are not from PEI, they see a lot of steel roofs. There's still a lot of asphalt roofs and that on homes here, but steel roofs are becoming more popular. And it was just something because of the season that makes sense at this time of year and something you wouldn't see during the summer if you're here and you're house hunting and then, assuming, well, because of the winds, I don't want to worry about shingles blowing off. So I'm just going to go the steel roof route. Be mindful that, again, if you're looking at them during the winter months, you may end up seeing and experiencing this versus the summer. But we do have these little avalanches that can happen off of a steel roof. On an asphalt roof, the snow slowly kind of melts and, comes off. But in a steel roof, especially if you have a vehicle parked under a garage
If it's
edge,
a new car, particularly.
Yeah.
The old rusty pickup truck, you're probably never going to see an avalanche. If it's a brand new sports car, chances are
Murphy's Law.
you're going to receive a giant icicle through your windshield.
Yeah, so just be really mindful of that because you will get this mass slide of heavy snow. Once, the sun is out and it decides it wants to give way, it is going to either fall on your vehicle, fall on you, or even fall on your little ones when they're coming home from school. So just something that, again, if you don't think about it, it's just one other item to consider.
What's the most valuable thing you can do when you're negotiating a deal? What's the one thing you can use to your advantage that doesn't cost you anything?
Go to the balcony.
Time.
Yes.
Go to the balcony.
Yes, the ability to walk away.
I'm working on a deal now. We're into month 3 of negotiating. The longest one's taken me 9 months. I don't know about you. What's your record so far this year for 2026?
Oh, this year for 2026. So this is a competition thing. Oh,
you have to limit it to the
Michael.
first month and a half.
Well, I'm in one right now, I would say. Right now, we're about a week in, and both parties seem to be using the strategy that they're both stepping back, despite both being interested in wanting to move forward, in my opinion.
The bottom line is allow time to be the negotiator, have the ability to walk away, or as Patty puts it, go to the balcony. You obviously have lived in a few apartment buildings in the big city.
No, it is a term. It is just the ability to walk away. Don't become emotionally invested. This is still business, which is why hiring a real estate professional can be so important because emotions are high, especially if it's your primary home and you've got children and everyone is relying on you. It can get very intense and feel very overwhelming and heavy. So to have a real estate professional who is able to walk you through it and allow the business transaction portion of it all while managing and handling the emotional part for the client is great. Now, my longest one ever was about a month and a half, Michael. And again, both were trying to play the game, but we won the game. And in the end, my seller did receive the amount that they wanted to receive because I told them, please be patient. These guys want this house. they will be back. And they were a little stressed, but it did all work out.
And that's a good time, I find, you spoke about this earlier in this episode, to raise the price on MLS. In one case, what we did is we actually canceled the listing because we knew these guys wanted the house. This was another deal we had been negotiating over 3 or 4 months. We knew they would pay anything for this house and give us a contract with no conditions. Their initial offers had nothing but piles of conditions, and they're asking for tens of thousands of dollars worth of inclusions. So what we decided to do, and I don't know what your feelings are on this, is just cancel the listing and change your mind. We're not selling the house anymore. So they went back a couple weeks later and said, "Where's the house?" And we said, "We've taken it off the market. We're not selling anymore." We knew that these guys had sold their house in another province and they needed somewhere to live, and this was the only house on the island they wanted. So basically we said, we want full price, we're not including anything, this is the day we want to close, and we're not doing any conditions. And we got it.
Good. That is a gamble. So you took a very risky
There's no risk at all because we didn't care if it sold.
Okay, well that's a new
These guys
element.
Thought that we were desperate to sell. The agent never spoke to the listing agent, which was me, as far as the circumstances, and they thought they were going to try to be Mr. and Mrs. Strong-arm negotiator. We knew you have to sell, because a lot of people look at PEI real estate, houses for sale, and they'll say, "Oh, it's been on the market for 6 months. These guys are desperate." No, they could be just average. And when you get above a million and change, there's not a lot of liquidity in the province, even though some agents, as you know, will tell you they just sold 9 of them last week, which is a bunch of crap. Because when you check the stats, there's not that many sales over $1 million. But in this case, the vendor didn't care if it sold. She owns multiple properties, all cash. This house in PEI was basically a cottage. But by taking it off the market, just sent a very strong message that we're not playing anymore.
Yeah, I just want to, because you had said that they, just using the example, 9 properties, in the last whatever. Please know there's some that will say, well, they're not on the MLS, and that's
of course, yes. I sold $20 billion in real estate last year, but none of it's on MLS because it doesn't even exist.
Yeah, just be mindful of that.
Show me your tax return.
And it's also doing a disservice to the public not having it on the MLS, because the value of the real estate professional is our database and the stats and the numbers. And, when you have agents that feel they're doing their deals off of the MLS, well, that's denying valuable information. You've got agents that will take their pictures all off the MLS because they think they're of some high value.
They'll nullify the description because their description is so incredibly well written. They're just a world-class copywriter that they don't want anyone to steal the description, so they'll change the description to hello.
Yeah, so they're impacting our data.
Which is not great when an appraiser comes along or an agent. They want to do a CMA and there's no pictures and no description.
Well, that's a good point. An appraiser who wants to use this property, and that's the only thing that they have to rely on.
But it's mainly brokerages you'll find. They'll say, you'll say to a brokerage, "Well, geez, you guys aren't really selling a lot." And then they'll give you the old, "Oh, a lot of our stuff is not on MLS." Yes, because it doesn't exist.
Yes.
Moving along, cottage owner converts cottage to year-round home only to find out there's no snow plowing for miles.
Uh-oh.
What do we need to be cautious about if we're buying a seasonal property? We want to make sure that the roads are maintained, there's garbage collection, school bus service. Now, the garbage collection, school bus service, they can always go to the end of the street or you can deliver them, same with your garbage. But when it comes to clearing the road, if you're down 2 or 3 miles of road and it's not being plowed, you need to make sure that you either contract somebody to do it or get really good at using heavy equipment or a plow truck.
And buy yourself a truck so you can load the garbage up onto it so you don't have to drag it, whether it's 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers down, so that you are now on a year-round road with the possibility of having your waste taken.
I think we've covered episode 121. Coming up in the next episode, super exciting stuff. Looking for a house with a garage? You may not want to do that. Offers subject to selling a house when a property has been digitally or virtually staged. We're going to get into that some more. lawyer's office saying they never received the file. That's always a juicy one. And I don't know how we put that. How would you describe that? Because we're not going to use that language on the podcast.
No, just demanding buyers, insisting on you were going to show me this property on this day at that time, and I'm not concerned with your schedule or the seller's schedule.
That's just a part of what's coming up in a $300,000 renovation that turns into over $1 million. Patty, tell us about
Toolbox Tuesday. So we have a continuation of this podcast, which is our private Facebook group, Moving to Prince Edward Island from the Michael and Patty podcast. And featured on there are Toolbox Tuesday, which is invaluable information. I don't just give you one or two things. I spend a great deal of time researching the topics that I put on there. And I do give you a full, hopefully as full as I am able to, put together and find toolbox on that topic. So the last week's on February 10th, Toolbox Tuesday was on buyer's lingo. And we kind of forget, Michael, I think, being in the industry for so long, that it is just our second nature and our normal language. But when I'm dealing with a new agent that is getting into the business, they find it overwhelming, all the lingo, as well as buyers find it a little bit. So what is that? And can you tell me what this is? And what should I be aware of? And what is that? So Toolbox Tuesday, the last featured one, was all on buyer's lingos, the definitions, and things that you should know when you're starting the process.
So be sure to check out the Facebook group. You can search for Moving to Prince Edward Island with the Michael and Patty podcast. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for listening.
Yes, we appreciate each and every one of you. So have a great day.